Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Paulie Eyes of Carbondale, the official coaches show of Saluki Athletics. Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
We welcome everybody back to Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Paulie Eyes of Carbondale. We're on location this week. Why shouldn't we? It's the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament this week in Bloomington Normal, Illinois at Duffy Bass Field. The Salukis, the 3 seed on Wednesday. They get into that double elimination portion of the bracket, which that's step one. That's no doubt most important, as Coach Rhodes here to preview the UIC Flames and recap the season to this point in the regular season. Coach Rhodes, appreciate the time. I know, look, no doubt the momentum, you wanted to build some positive momentum going into the tournament. It wasn't necessarily the most positive weekend for your group, but it is a little bit of a reset. And, look, your seeding is based on what you did in your whole body of work, and your group earned a 3 seed, which is still a big deal that you don't have to start this tournament on Tuesday.
No, I think yesterday as an off day, you kind of take a step back and you kind of look at the whole picture of the season. And definitely anytime you can win 37 games, I think that's something to be proud of. I think as coaches and as players, like, you get so caught up in the now, which is there's a lot of value in doing that too. And you know, when you finish the season losing the weekend on a weekend that you think that you should have swept, it eats at you a little bit. But at the same time, you know, we are going into the tournament in a position where you know, we can manage it from, you know, a pitching standpoint by not having to play that extra game. And then we're also in a position where, you know, we have to win just as many games as you're a 1 seed or a 2 seed. And so there's not a ton of difference other than, you know, we're going to be playing somebody that hasn't played.
Yeah.
That's the only difference that we're going to be rather than being in the 1 or 2. And not trying to justify it. You know, we would rather have been a 2. We'd rather have been a 1. No doubt about it. We feel like we fell short of our ultimate goal of the regular season, but at the same time, we can still look back on this thing after this tournament and feel like we had a good regular season and feel really good when we win the tournament.
Look, there's no excuses with you and your program, and your players don't set them. You as a staff don't set them. It's why the culture I think you have here is really good. Look, the past weekend, it was really tough conditions to pitch in. No doubt the third day of the weekend was a little bit more, I say pitcher-friendly, but still the wind was still howling out at Valpo. The ball always carries there. With that wind, it makes it even more of a tougher dynamic. So, yes, it was not the ideal pitching weekend that you wanted to set up for the tournament. How much do you want? I mean, you can't really worry about it. You got to turn the page here quickly. But also go, look, guys, I know it was a really tough weekend to put you out there. On a weekend, you already know you're going to have limited pitches because you want to set them up for the tournament this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of, one, like those guys were going up there just free swinging, taking big hacks, and they had, you know, really the only thing they had to play for was just trying to do some, like, cool things for their personal success to end their season on. And they were over there playing free, and give them credit. I mean, they honestly played really good. And I'm sure they're thinking as a team, like, if they would have played like that for majority of their season, I mean, their season would have been different. You know, the big thing is like we have to just play better, right? Doesn't matter who we play. I think if you take a look at our entire league now that we've gone through the whole league and heading into the tournament, I don't think there's anybody going into that tournament that you're like, man, I'm scared to play those guys. I'm worried to play those guys. I think we're all very similar, where every one of our teams have lost to other teams. Everybody's beat other teams. Like, I think it's truly as wide open as a conference tournament that it's been since I've been here. Whereas in past, you kind of go in and you're like, man, I would really like this team to lose, or I don't really want to face this team. Yeah. Whereas in this year, I really don't think it matters who you play. Like, I really think that on any given day, either team could win, and it's just going to come down to who plays the best.
Look, we'll turn it to the tournament, and you know, you can tell me, hey, let's just move along and not make it a big deal. But I know for all of us, at least for me, how the regular season ended, of course, was a little sour, especially when you look for the league where Missouri State and Murray State did not finish their series. They only got to play one game. That's at least 18 innings of pitching. Or if you look at two Mercy Rule potential games, it's at least 14 innings that neither of those teams had to use. That is probably one of the more frustrating things towards the end of the year. You as a program, you always look, and even in my experience in the league, you never want people throughout the league to even somewhat question your integrity as a coach in the program. Just one, how you take that in. I think it's important to bring it up and address. I don't think everyone should just sweep it under the rug and say, hey, let's just move along. The tournament's going to take place, but I just don't think that was it was good for the league at all this past weekend.
Yeah, it's one of those things as an outsider, like if you're not there,
absolutely,
maybe you don't know the full details of it. I only thing that I can comment on it is that we were there on a very similar situation, and the field was absolutely soaked, and at that time, in that portion of the season, we needed to get the games in because of I think we were neck and neck for second place.
Absolutely.
So it was a thing where we were trying to do everything we could to make sure we played in order to kind of situate those standings, and that's what we did. Now again, I do know that on Friday, just from the outside looking at it, it looked like there was possibilities to play. Now Saturday, it was probably a little bit different story. I mean, they did have those strong storms come through there. It sounded like the tarp got blown off, and it wasn't just the outfield; it was like the infield that was in pretty rough shape too there. So maybe they couldn't have got Saturday in, but it would have been nice to at least get 2 games in rather than just 1. And the game was called so early on Friday, that was probably kind of a thing where maybe as teams looking at it from the outside, if they would have just waited and then cancel it at 6 or 7 at night, then you can say, man, they did everything they could, right? They waited all day, they tried. But again, like at the end of the day, and we talked about this as coaches on the bus ride, we as a program gave them a reason to not play. And if we would have taken care of our business in the season, in the regular season, with some of the games that we feel like we should not have lost, then they would have had to found a way to play those games. But because we gave games away and lost, some games that we should not have, they didn't have to play. So we have nobody but to blame but ourselves on why they didn't play those games.
And that's a really great way to look at it. That's enough of that. Let's look towards the tournament. UIC's a team that we saw here just on the field behind us earlier this year, and let's just say the 2 doubleheader games were very entertaining. Two 10-inning games, 20 innings on one day was a lot of baseball. I know the first game of that series, UIC really took their hand in that and got off to a great start. What have you seen from them since then? Because that was the first conference series of the year, which seems like a long time ago.
Yeah. I definitely think they're playing better. You look at when they came here, I think they had 4 overall wins maybe.
Yeah. Right around that.
Whenever they came in to play us. And, they've gone up to, I think, 20 now. So they've won 16 games basically since the time that we've seen them. So they're definitely playing better. Again, they've got, some really good starting pitching. They've actually added a bat through a waiver process that did not play against us, who's hitting in the middle of the order for them. So, I think, again, when you look at teams that have a chance to win the tournament, like I don't feel like they're a team that couldn't do it either. I think they got pieces. I think they're a good team. They got off to a really bad start playing some really tough teams early. But, it's one of those things where we'll have to be on top of our game because, they've got a couple pitchers that are at the top of our league in some numbers, so we'll have to get off to a good start. They've got a proven closer that's closed out games before too, and they got some pieces in the lineup with Nowak leading off and some pieces that are doing damage in the middle. So, again, just a really good team.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to play the rest of this thing is just teams that are, hopefully our best players show up and play because everybody else's best players are going to show up and play.
What do you enjoy most about this time of year, Coach Rhodes, where you try to prepare your team for as much as what is coming and what this weekend is going to be, and then you get to it and the nerves are a lot different and the feel to the game is much different? One, that brings a great excitement level to it. Just how you approach with your guys knowing hey, the feeling when you go out there Wednesday morning at 11, it's going to feel a heck of a lot different than it's had at any point in time this year.
Yeah, I think, the greatest thing about this tournament is that, like, everybody has hope, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the coolest thing about it, whether you're going in there as the number 8 seed or you're going in there as the number 1 seed. Like, you're kind of looking at this thing and navigating through the bracket, and everybody thinks, man, if this happens or that happens or if we play good here, we have a chance. And that's the cool thing about a tournament is that you really don't know. You don't know how it's going to play out. And I think, I feel as good as any team that we've gone into a tournament that we have a chance to win this thing. And, we have the parts. We have, we've got pitching that's going to be ready. That's, we're not going in taxed or anything like that. And, we just got to go play. And there's no reason why we can't do it.
And you have one of the best players in the league, Matt Shark. And this time last week, we didn't know he was going to get the co-hitter of the week. And no doubt it was deserved for the weekend he had last weekend. And continued to play well for you throughout the week. He's still continuing to chase so many records within your team. But in terms of a leadership piece, in this tournament, to have success, you got to have really good leadership. Why does the comfort level, and I don't want to describe it comfort level, but knowing you have a Matt Shark, how much that really you're excited to get on that bus because he's on that bus with you?
Yeah, and big thing is he wants it, and that's half the battle right there. Is just really wanting to make it happen, and we're going to have some special performances. You look back at pretty much every team that wins a conference tournament, there's somebody that goes off and is the MVP of the tournament. There's somebody that steps up and pitches, whether it's 2 or 3 appearances, somebody that goes a long distance. Like, there's going to be some special performance on the pitching side. There's going to be a special performance on the offensive side. And, hopefully somebody on our team steps up and does that. And, that's – at the end of this thing, when we have a chance to dogpile, it's going to be because somebody does something like that gets them a recognition at the end of this thing.
Even though you don't win the series against Valpo, one of the biggest bright spots, and we're going to have him on the show here after you, is Caleb Hall. Caleb Hall has been outstanding since he's come back, and we kind of talked about him a week ago, and maybe it was one of our pregame conversations. We have a lot of conversations these days. It's hard to keep them all straight, but it was – sometimes you think, hey, it's going to take guys maybe a bit to get back into the lineup and get that feel to see his first live pitching in almost over a month. It has seemed like to have little effect on him. Not necessarily that would come out of left field because he's playing so well, but he's one of those guys that can fit into that criteria. He could be a very special player for you this week.
Yeah, I'm really proud of how he's bounced back. And, like we talked about before, there's not many times, especially, you think about rehab assignments for Major League Baseball. I mean, those guys go down and they play, a week or so of minor league baseball and get some at-bats and then go into, back to a big league game. He literally did not see a live pitch before he got thrown in there and just started hitting right away, which is pretty, remarkable there for that. And he's moving well. He's running well. Like, he's doing a lot of really good things. And, the thing for him that it was very interesting is that he just talked about, hey, when I was not playing, like, I learned a lot, watching other at-bats, seeing how people were pitching against you. So he didn't just sit there mindlessly watching these games without learning from it. And I think you can tell that because whenever he got into the situation of playing and he was ready, game ready right from the bat. So, proud of him for sitting in the dugout and actually being productive while not being able to play.
Defensively for your group, I know Friday was a frustration after really for the last couple of weeks. I feel that's been a side of your team that has no doubt improved. Just as you head into the tournament, we talk about just wanting to make sure that you're hitting your stride. Just what do you kind of communicate with your team this week to kind of, hey, we've been playing well for the majority here of this closing stretch of the season. We know it's no doubt within us to be able to have a really good week in Bloomington Normal.
Yeah, and I think where we've got to make the adjustment and where we'll talk about it as a staff with our players is like we're going to make an error. We're probably going to make an error every game we play. That's just normal. But where we have gotten so out of whack this year is that we make an error and it leads to 4 or 5, and we had 5 on the board on, I think, Friday, and there's probably should have been 8 or 9. And that's where we've got to make the adjustment. If we have one of those games in the conference tournament where we have 4 or 5 errors or 4 or 5, mental mistakes, we're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. But we've got to be able to make one mistake and from the pitching side of it, rebound, throw good strikes, pick that position player up. If we make a mistake on the mound, pick him up on the defensive side instead of letting that thing snowball into a bunch of mistakes in a row, because those are just hard to overcome whenever you give those just huge innings up with so many mistakes in there.
And I know it's stating the obvious, right? When you get into a tournament, I think this year it's probably even more important to get off to a good start and try to stay on that winner's side of the bracket, just because I think everybody in the league, they like the pitching that they have, but they also know that the depth may not be like it's been in years past. Staying on that winner's side of the bracket. Look, your team has lost the first game of the tournament and made the hard way back all the way to the very final game of the tournament. So you've had experience doing it. Let's just say that's probably the path that you do not want to try to take this week.
No, I think whenever you get into that loser's bracket, like you said, we have actually done it before where we lost the very first game and made it all the way back and actually won on the first championship game and got into if necessary. It just puts such a high level of pressure on you when you get into that loser's bracket that it's just, it's already a little crack there, and then something happens and it just kind of makes everything crumble. So anytime you can stay on the winner's side of it, it just gives you that little bit more freedom walking on the field. And the unique our bracket it's a different bracket, man. Whoever set this thing up, but when you look at the fact that we actually got that 3 seed and got a bye, the good thing is if you do slip up and lose the first game, you still have the same exact amount of games to get into the championship game as you would if you just went out. You just can't lose anymore. So again, getting into that 3 seed, the top 4 is a big deal from that side of it, because we don't have any extra games necessarily if we get into the losers bracket, as long as we continue to win. So again, I don't think there's anybody in our league that has the pitching to really go into the loser bracket and fight all the way back through. I'll be surprised if that happens this year.
No question. And if you get in that position, it's just, hey, you got to live it inning by inning, try to fight your way through. But first things first, it starts on Wednesday against UIC. Coach, we really appreciate the time. We thank the hospitality out here at your field here before heading up to Bloomington Normal, and looking forward to the conference tournament this week.
It's an exciting week, and it's always just fun, even just watching other games, kind of just seeing the anticipation, what's going on. And also it's just that feeling of win in advance, right? It's kind of like March Madness. It's just a cool feeling, and there's no better week than conference tournament week.
I will tell you this, you are correct there, but just like what Coach Nagy and the Dogs did at Arch Madness, when you're in the first game and you win, watching the rest of the day is a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely makes the day a lot better, I can tell you that. I've been on both sides of that too. I've won early and watched it and had a good day, and I've lost the first one, and the day's pretty long. So, hopefully we'll go out and win that first one.
We'll be back here in just a matter of moments. Caleb Hall is going to join us to preview the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament this week in Bloomington Normal. This is Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. Welcome everybody back to Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. It is Valley Tournament Week as the Salukis head to Bloomington Normal. One guy who's been staying hot for the Dogs since he's come back to the lineup over the last week has been Caleb Hall, and he's earned the right to come on the show here to preview the Valley Tournament. Caleb, appreciate the time, man. What's it been like back in the lineup? And, man, you've been very productive here over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yes, sir. It's been really good to be back in the lineup. Had that little bit of time where I was out
Yeah.
with a dislocated toe, but just really excited to be back and be on the field with the fellas. Nothing really beats it. So
You talked about the dislocated toe, and you're gone for virtually a month, and Coach Rhodes is like, you see no live pitching during that time until that midweek at SIUE. What do you do during that month of course, one, you're going through your rehab, but to also just try to make sure you're ready whenever that is over the course of the month?
yeah, yes, sir. I think it's really just about I don't know, telling yourself over and over again that you're coming back. That's your plan is to come back and to get on the field with the boys by the end of the year. And I think just kind of staying in that mindset kept me from getting down or kind of counting myself out of the season. But staying in tune, making sure that everything, all the boxes were checked before I got back on the field.
Yeah.
Like swing felt good, was able to run, was able to get stuff done. Just made sure that I had all the boxes checked, so when I came back, I was ready to play.
One of the things I always really love about you, Caleb, is you always have that smile about you. You always have a positive attitude, and even in the aftermath of you getting hurt, you were still that around the batting cage with your team. How important was that for you because that was still a time, too, there was a little bit, I don't want to say uneasiness after that Indiana State series, but there was a wonder of, could you come back, depending on what some results were, but yet your attitude was still very upbeat.
Yeah, yes, sir. I think that's really important, just because it's good to be positive around people. It's a lot of people will feel that energy and it'll rub off on them. And I always want to try and leave a positive impact on somebody and maybe leave a smile on their face with a smile on mine. So
This team this year, there's no doubt been some really good weekends, and there's been some tough weekends. And this past weekend, no doubt, was more on the tougher side right before a tournament. How did you guys just address it more on the bus ride and coming back? And now as you get ready to head out to Bloomington Normal this week, what were the biggest things that you guys as players were really at top of mind for you?
I feel like the biggest thing for us is we really do believe we're never out of it. Even this weekend, having a tough loss or two tough losses on the road, I feel like first little bit of the bus ride was a little you had to swallow your pride a little bit, but it was good by the end of the bus ride how everybody was kind of back to their normal self, kind of pushing it away. And I feel like we have a very good, mature team that is going to be able to go into the conference tournament and not even really think about it.
When you think over these last couple of weeks, Caleb, one, you'll be able to rejoin the lineup. It seems since you've rejoined it, you've ignited Matt Shark as well, who's just been on an unreal heater. How fun has it been to see a guy like him perform like he has here at the most important time of the year, which is the final weekends of the year?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's been an absolute blast. Every time he gets up to the plate, you almost have a little smile on your face because you feel like something magical is going to happen. So, I don't know. I feel like also just as a team, being able to kind of rally around one person sometimes when they're having such a good moment like that can just build everybody else up because their success allows you to feel your success. So it's amazing to see what he's doing.
This is within your first year within the program. What have you enjoyed most about being a Saluki?
I've honestly loved what it meant to be a Saluki. Like how we show up every day, we work hard, we do the little things right, we pay attention to the details. We're not afraid to do the hard work. We're not afraid to get up at 7 a.m. after a 6-hour bus ride, hit the weights, hit a practice. We really embody what it means to be a Saluki.
You mentioned that embody word, and that no doubt gets tested when you don't have the results you want. So knowing all that, what gives you the optimism this week, Caleb, that you guys can get right back together, know you get a fresh start on Wednesday against UIC, and have a chance to start the tournament off on the right foot?
I think that's the exciting part is that everybody comes into this tournament, you're 0-0. It doesn't necessarily matter what you did during the regular season. If you had a great year, if you had a bad year, everybody comes in here, and it's end of the season ball now. You're playing to stay alive. You're playing to fight. And I feel like with how much fight our team has, we're ready to go in there and fight.
You've played baseball for a long time, and you've been a part of postseason games from, I'm sure, at every level that you've been in. There's a different feel when you get to the postseason. What do you enjoy most about taking that field, knowing the ultimate prize is on the line, which for you guys is a chance to try to go to an NCAA regional?
I find it very exciting. I think a lot of people on our team do too. I feel like it's more fun when your back's against the wall, when you got nowhere to go. It shows you who you really are, not just as a person, but as a team. It's going to show us that if we're willing to fight back in tough situations this week, if we're willing to come out hot and ready, and if we're willing to stay that way.
What do you believe, Caleb, when we look back on this in a week? You guys are still practicing here, going to an NCAA regional. If that's the case, why is that? What does this team need to do well this week to put yourselves in a position to have a chance to win a tournament?
I think showing up to the field, ready to compete from the moment we get there is going to be big for us. We've had times throughout the year where we've waited till later innings to hop on teams and get it going, which is fun because we're never out of it. But I think this week's going to be really big if we show up to the ball yard ready to go from pitch number 1 and we're willing to fight for those 9 innings that were on that field. It's going to be pretty hard to beat the Dogs.
No doubt. And you guys throughout this year have shown, of course, the dynamics you've had in terms of offensively. Defensively, at times, has no doubt been a struggle. I know against Valpo that was really showed. But for the most part, though, down the stretch, you guys defensively have no doubt improved. I know for you, you've been in the lineup and you've not necessarily been out in the field yet. But what does this team need to do to prevent that one mistake leading to 2, 3, or 4, which at times this year has probably been the biggest bugaboo?
Yeah, yes, sir. I think stopping the snowball is definitely a big piece of our success. And I think that it's really just, as I mentioned, us staying locked in pitch to pitch and realizing that even if we make a mistake, the next one's coming right at us. Not letting the mistakes or the failures that we have in our past keep us from staying locked in the moment.
And no doubt nothing is given to you guys. Everything you got to go earn, and the first step to doing that is you got to believe you can do it. What's the feeling in that clubhouse this week of the belief factor of saying, hey, we can go win this thing?
Yeah, no, we really do believe it. It's something that we all want. It's something that we've all been talking about for a long time, and it's really the only reason we showed up back in August is we knew that we were going to have a chance to fight for a conference title and fight for a regional.
Caleb, we appreciate the time. Good luck this week in Bloomington Normal. It should be a lot of fun at Duffy Bass Field.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Once again, that was Caleb Hall, and a big thank you to Caleb and Coach Lance Rhodes for joining us this week on our Valley Tournament preview for the Salukis. Again, it begins on Wednesday at 11 a.m. It will be on the Valley on ESPN Plus, as well on Saluki Radio. We'll have the coverage for you all week long. For the coach, for Caleb, I am Luke Martin saying so long, Saluki Nation. We'll talk to you from Bloomington Normal. This has been Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale.
This has been Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.